And I think we are finally live.
Are we live?
Hi,
Excellent.
Shannon.
Hi,
Yeah,
Bryce.
it is finally. We are doing our live hangout, live stream with our lovely patrons at patreon.com/GlassboxPod. And we're just here to hang out, talk, commiserate, discuss, maybe predict some general conference stuff, because that's going to be our next episode on the podcast, and just kind of generally see what's going on in everybody's lives. Shannon, what's going on in your life while I get that link sent out to our patrons?
What's going? Let's see, all the normal stuff. Let's see, cardiac rehab. I've got medications. I've got all of that doctor visits. Yeah, all of that stuff. Yeah, all the usual stuff. Now, here we are getting ready for general conference. It's with the political climate being what it is now. Um, I'm I'm really curious over what's going to happen on this general conference, actually, because I mean, the church doesn't really make political statements outright, but they make political statements. The church leadership does. They just couch it in other terms. And so I'm curious about what they will do this time around. I'm curious about uh, who is going to be the ones making the bigger statements, um, that kind of thing. And so I'm also curious what everybody else is going to think about it, what others who come on and anybody else who's watching us on YouTube, because this could be a rather different one. I would be surprised if it was just the same old boring shit. Um,
Yeah,
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 I
for
would be
sure.
really surprised. And because we know Bednar has an agenda, Oaks has an agenda, Holland has an agenda, but is Holland going to be well enough to speak? Who knows? All that kind of stuff. So, yes, we're
Yeah.
going to get 27 temples announced because that's what Nelson does, regardless of whether they actually build them. I think probably two-thirds of all the temples announced are not even in construction yet.
Yeah, he just said the words and that's all we
Yeah,
got. Yeah,
that's all
it's
we
really
have.
strange.
It's dumb. It's really
Yeah.
stupid.
Because I
And
mean, it
yeah,
was his first general conference. He announced, what was it, like 12 or something like that, and everyone lost their shit. Like, oh, this is so amazing. This is, the stone is rolling forth to fill the whole earth, and it was, fulfillment of some kind of a prophecy. Because everything a prophet does is fulfillment of prophecy. But then it's like, if you're setting yourself a pace for that, then that's just not sustainable. That's not smart. What are you
nope.
doing to yourself? I don't understand what the long-term goal is and what the game plan is here. It's
Right.
very strange.
I know they've started that one announced last time in Lehigh, um, but that didn't surprise me. It's Utah. So,
That's interesting. So the Lehigh one has clearly jumped up their triage list
yeah,
for it's wow.
but not the ones that were announced like 6 years ago.
Yeah. And still waiting on that China and Russia one.
Yeah, especially since the countries are like, yeah, no, you don't have any approval here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are
Um,
idiots.
do you think he's going to be attending a single session in person, or do you think
I'm
Rusty's going to
betting
be
we're gonna get
fully
him on
MIA?
video. I bet, well, I think we might get him there, but I think any talk will be on from pre-recording.
Yeah, he's
So
definitely
they
not going to
can,
talk 100%.
and so yeah, that's what I'm betting. But we'll see. Who knows? Maybe he'll die before this Saturday.
Or maybe he has been dead for months and they'll announce it. We'll see.
If they can they get away with that? That's the crazy
I
thing.
mean, they're so
Because
cloistered. Like, I don't
yeah,
know.
but they'll still have to put his body out on display and let everybody come like you do with the
Mm,
president of the United States and all that
yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
They treat it like the Pope. Um, so because I mean, who was the last one? Monson. Wasn't he on display for like 2 or 3 days, something like that?
I don't remember. It wouldn't surprise me, but I don't
But
remember.
they
I
just
wasn't
had
in the church at the
crowds of
time.
people coming through. And I just kept thinking of things like when John Dillinger was killed, and all the crowds who came through, and people dipping their handkerchiefs in his blood to have it as a souvenir.
Fascinating. Uh, I mean, there are some parallels, the criminality and whatnot, but I mean, at least Dillinger was like, a Robin Hood story, at least.
sort of.
Right.
He just he forgot the giving to the poor part.
Yeah. But he wasn't stealing from the poor. He was stealing from the
No,
wealthiest
he was
assholes
stealing
around.
from the wealthy. He was like the original Robin Hood,
Yeah,
which was
exactly.
just a thief. That's the originally it was kind of the John Doe of the court system in England, was the name Robin Hood, and that was just a thief. He didn't become this giving to the poor for like 300 years or something like that. Yeah.
Fascinating.
And I think, who was it? Will Scarlet was the first compatriot for him that started into the legends. It was about 300 years before Maid Marian showed up. So it was probably about like 100 years before they started doing the poor, giving to the poor. Anyway, yeah. And others got added in. Guy of Gisborne was uh, the one he was fighting against before it was the sheriff, all this shit. Anyway,
Eventually, Blinken got added, you know.
yeah. And so, Little John and all that shit. So, yeah, anyway. Okay, yeah. But Dillinger was a real person.
Dillinger was real. That's right. Uh,
Yes.
so I've seen some interesting, just like in the ex-Mormon spaces, some predictions. Oakes is going to be conducting all of the sessions. Maybe he
I
might
doubt
share
it.
some
I
of them
think we're
with
going to get a
Iring.
bunch of the apostles again,
Yeah.
is what I think. Yeah.
And Holland, I think it's probably reasonable to expect Holland is going to do pre-recorded. I don't think he's gonna stand.
I think the same with Iring.
Probably.
Iring, especially because it's like watching him, you can tell some of the places where cuts were. And I was like, they have to cut a lot with him. They
Yeah.
absolutely have to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he has, I mean, struggled with mobility for years, and I mean, he was, I think, wasn't he in wheelchair last general
I think
conference?
so. I think all three of them were.
Yeah.
Oakes was the only one
Nelson,
of the
and
top
Holland,
four.
and
Yeah.
yeah, Iring were in wheelchairs. Oaks was the only one not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he had a person on either side, like weekend at Bernie's holding him up. Like,
Like Howard W. Hunter.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
remember
it's
that when
just
he fell.
strange.
Yeah.
That's just the gerontocracy of it all is just very, very strange.
Yeah. The youngest in there is Kieran, who is in his 60s.
Early 60s, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, 62, I think. Bednar is 72. Yeah. And so
Hmm.
yeah, it's crazy.
I think it'll be interesting to see how often Bednar is quoted. I think
Yes.
probably more than any general conference before.
Yeah.
And
It was a lot last time.
it
Right.
was a lot. I mean, we counted them up. There were a few different counts that went around of how many Bednar quotes there were, how many Nelson
Yeah.
quotes. And
Well, they all see what's coming. They see it.
yeah.
They see he's the strongest one after Oaks. Yeah.
Yeah. Another prediction I saw is there won't be a single talk about the Constitution hanging by a thread or even
No, there won't
allusions
be.
to it. No, because I feel like this is probably going to be a victory lap one for them. That's
It
just
will.
how it's starting to feel for me.
Yeah, the Constitution hanging by a thread thing was Benson's thing,
Yeah, but there's
and
still allusions to
there
it.
was
They don't
illusions,
say
but
it as like forward as
right.
Benson ever did, but
Yeah, that was his little bugaboo. Um, but yeah, and so it's kind of slowly gone out. I don't think they want to bring the focus to that because the Constitution really is against so much of what Mormonism does.
yeah,
And so they don't want the attention on that. They like it to be the way the far right deals with it because the far right has the same agenda as they do.
right.
But otherwise, they don't want a real microscope on it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, there was a marked increase in the apocalyptic type of rhetoric that was used once Biden took office.
Yes. Yes.
Like a marked difference from when Trump was in the first time to Biden. So I think we'll probably see a ratcheting back of that apocalyptic rhetoric. Or maybe they'll use it. Maybe they'll lean into it. And
Right.
I don't know. It's It all kind of depends. There's a lot of strange things that are happening in the political space right now, and it's hard to tell what they're going to say, what they will say
Yeah,
publicly versus what's deep in their hearts.
right, right. What do you think is going to be the most controversial thing this time around? I should say controversial to the ex-Mormon sphere, because the
Yeah.
Mormon sphere will be just like, oh wow, on
I
everything.
I think there will be a reduction in wokens that they give out. So people of color speaking and women speakers, I think there will be a reduction from last year or last general conference because the last general conference was a reduction from the general conference
Yeah, it
before
was.
that. But I don't think that'll be the most controversial. I think that'll just be a continuing of a trend that we're seeing.
Hmm.
Uh, Controversial. I don't know. I mean, what I got to think about it a little bit. What do you think? Do you have thoughts on it?
Yeah, that's when I was like, what is going to be it? Because there's something that happens each time where we're like focusing right on it, going, okay, this is a harbinger of what's coming. And so that's when I was like, the who would I expect we'd get it from? Because in these past few, we're actually getting them from 70s rather than the quorum of the 12.
Yeah. It's like
And
they're like that's their test pool
that's their testing
where
thing,
they can try the most
right?
controversial shit.
And so that's when I was like, I wonder if we're going to get more of the, I'm trying to think of what to call it, but all I could think of is distinction of rank because I've been reading Pride and Prejudice. But that separation of Mormons and non-Mormons, that big thing that was the big deal with McCrakey. And I'm wondering if that's going to be happening more now,
Hmm.
especially because with the political climate being as it is, you know, brown people are bad and, you know, refugees are bad and those who are different are bad,
Yeah. We're
You're not
being
able,
invaded by a
yes,
hostile army and all that shit.
we're not allowed to use the word disabled or women's rights or, all these kind of
Or
things. And so
climate
I'm like,
change or
how
anything.
much of it, yeah, climate change. So how much of it is going to be them pulling in and following that line? So
Hmm. Interesting questions. Well, I mean, we have a couple panelists.
yeah,
Do
I want
you
to know what they
two,
think.
do either of you have thoughts on what predictions for General Conference or what might be the most controversial thing that might happen at conference this year?
It's the usual.
Say that again.
Probably just the usual that they do. Anti-gain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The usual. That's I think a fair prediction. The usual. I mean, Oaks is
Those
going to
will
be
be
a
there.
bigot. Uh, Bednar is going to be a tyrant. Kieran is going to wrap up some kind of shitty message in a nice sounding
Yes.
accent, and Uchtdorf is going to be the only one who says something that's not controversial
Yeah. I mean,
or
Kieran,
shitty.
Kieran being a PR specialist, you just know he's going to be there to soothe the masses,
Yeah.
make everybody feel good. And you have to really look at the underlying theme.
Yeah. Oh, and Cook is going to lie about history. Check
Of
this out.
course.
But those are all the typicals. That's
Exactly.
nothing
Yeah.
controversial or new.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they're gonna stay away from politics, though.
They usually do, but they do, but they don't. They stay away from it overtly, but it's their underlying message. And the read between the lines things, see what slips through the cracks.
Yeah. Will be interesting to see. Will be very,
Yeah.
very interesting.
We have to
Hmm.
do a lot to gear ourselves up for it. And I'm always very happy I'm on beta blockers now.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I think back to one that made me so angry. I'm
Hmm.
like, boy, they don't make me that angry anymore because I got beta blockers. Okay. Heart meds are really nice.
Yeah, when they're working as designed and keeping you alive. Yeah.
Yes. Did you know professional golfers take beta blockers? They
Hmm.
do, because it settles down the adrenaline rush, because that's the last place you need an adrenaline rush is when you're playing
Right.
golf.
Interesting. Very
That's
interesting.
your trivia for the day.
I am remembering the movie The Last Indian,
Mm,
where he's I guess he's on nitroglycerin, not necessarily beta blockers,
right.
because he has a heart condition, and right before he makes his big run on the salt flats, he drops a couple of those pills in the gas tank of his motorcycle. Two for me, two for the old girl.
Anthony Hopkins did a really good job in that.
Yeah, that was a great movie. I
It
love that
is.
movie.
I went and watched it because it was Anthony Hopkins, and it was completely not at all in any way, shape, or form what I expected.
Yeah, I was like, The Last Indian, what's it gonna be about? Oh, it's a motorcycle. All right, cool.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what? I didn't know he would. So,
Yeah.
oh God. How many women do you think will speak this time or say prayers?
Speak, I'm going to say two. Prayers, one.
Okay.
That's my prediction. Two and one. What do you think?
Where do you, yeah, that's probably about right. Where do you think they're going to put Uchtdorf? Because we hear from the entire Q15 somehow.
Yeah. I'm wondering if they're going to push him out to Saturday night.
Again,
That last time.
Yeah. Yeah.
they do like to do that. I was thinking of either Saturday night or Saturday afternoon. I think you get the lowest viewership on those two. For sure,
Yeah.
Saturday night. This like Sunday morning, you get more coming because of music and the spoken word right before.
Hmm.
And then everybody wants to be there for the last one because they want to hear where the temples are going to be announced.
Yeah. And the prophet always has to give his closing address.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's definitely one of the Saturday sessions, probably night, well, but could be evening
Hmm.
as well. Uh, and what are they going to allow him to say even?
Right.
I mean, because
Right.
I can't imagine that he's okay with the current political sphere,
I
and
would doubt it.
but that he's not going to be able to say anything. So
No.
it'll be interesting to see how they muzzle him, how the correlation committee muzzles him.
What I wish I could see, this is when I wish Mormon Leaks was still around and there was somebody who could do it, is to see what the talks are that get submitted and see what they are like after the lawyers go through them.
Oh, that would be so fantastic.
Isn't it though? Yeah.
I would love to see that. Yeah, I bet that they probably have a pretty strict burn policy for
Hmm.
all previous drafts,
Yeah.
just because they want to guard against exactly that happening.
Yeah. Because I mean, there were even in my lifetime, there were ones like LeGrand Richards who rarely, if ever, gave the talk that he submitted. He would end up doing something different from the mic, and he would even tell him, "They told me I had to keep the same one," you know. And this I heard from the editor in charge of the conference report they used to put out, which was different than the New Era or the Ensign. I mean, because the
Mhm.
Ensign will put it out, yes, but the conference report was a separate volume that was done, and it gave everything word for word, mistakes, jokes, everything. Whereas the Ensign had just the talks that were submitted. You didn't always get the little extras.
Hmm.
And so they were always scrambling to get things done when LeGrand Richards would get up and do that because they had to have it exactly word for word in the conference report. But then it was in the early 90s that word came down. They had to stop doing that. They had to only put in what got put into the enzyme. And she was really bothered at that because she liked having that actual record.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
like that one conference where I think it was a conference, we talked about it once several episodes back, where the printed word was vastly different on a paragraph than what was actually presented.
yeah.
Yeah, Packer got censored one time.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty heavily
And
censored.
yeah, which is weird to see Packard get censored, but
Hmm.
he's the one censoring so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, and so that's something that I would be interested because I really think that the lawyers have too much say in what they say over the pulpit. George P. Lee, he also had a couple times where he went off the rails in a talk, so to speak. It was not as bad as it could have been, but that was before he got excommunicated, which was in 1989. He was kicked off of the 70s and excommunicated, but um, yeah, he was really upset with the way the church handled the Native Americans after President Kimball died. And he was the only Native American that was ever put into the 70s.
Yeah, they didn't make that mistake again. I
No.
mean, it's like just it's
Yeah.
then what was the next non-white calls after that were Suarez and Gong,
Well,
right?
yeah, in the 70s.
I thought you were talking
No, George P.
apostles.
Lee was
My
only a
mistake.
70.
Okay.
Yeah. Um,
I don't know why
no,
that
he would never have made it into the apostles, but as we've said too, is that Suarez and Gong were only brought in to divert focus off of the Protect Eliot's Children movement.
yeah. I
But
mean, that it'll
yeah.
be interesting to see what they do for the next apostle calls,
Yes.
right? Because I mean, it's reasonable to assume that they're going to have to be calling a new apostle within the next 6 months, before the October General Conference. So I think it will be very interesting to see, because we have had a few African American speakers from the pulpit lately. I mean, the first one was what, 2017 or 2018 or whenever.
Yeah.
It was
Or
Johnson.
African ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
so
so that'll be really, really interesting to see when they have, the next non-white guy up
yeah.
there.
I wonder who they have already, because they already have it planned who they're going to replace them with.
Yeah. I mean, I think they probably have a short list, a very,
Yeah.
very short list.
I
And
really hope Brad Wilcox is not on that list because he's bucking for it.
oh yeah, 100%.
I just hope he's too controversial that for them to bring him in.
He is, in my opinion, not too controversial for Oakes's church,
Yeah.
but I think he might be too controversial for Bednar's church. And that's
Yeah.
because Bednar
Yeah.
seems to me to be far more reserved and turtled than Oakes and Eyring and Holland.
Bednar is a little more McCranky-ish. Um, what I wonder about is Wilcox does lean toward apologetics, and they don't
Hmm.
seem to call those the ones who are apologists into that position because that gives them a little bit too much authority for them to deny statements, past statements.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, yeah, they're throwing them under the bus now, especially like Brigham Young and stuff. Nelson trying to destroy everything Hinckley did, though he's not being blatant about it like they are about Brigham Young. He's far enough in the past. I don't know. It's just you don't see apologetics in there.
Well, and it's they don't bring apologists in, and they
Right.
haven't for a long time, but that doesn't mean that occasionally some of them won't do apologetics. And that's why I get so mad at Quentin L. Cook so
Yeah,
much,
that's
because he's
true.
bringing out historical apologetics all the time.
Yeah.
And that's
'Cause
grinds my gears.
well, and plus, like with Wilcox, he's too much on the side of slavery was a blessing for
Mm,
black people.
yeah.
And so, but this political climate now kind of supports that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's hard to say. I just can't stand him.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
might have too much of a following
He
for them
does.
to choose him.
Ugh. He's
Because
and
yeah,
because they got a isn't he in the young men's presidency now?
yeah. And he was like
Ugh.
a youth speaker and stuff,
Yeah,
an author.
he does
So
all
they
the
might be afraid of
policy.
that kind of type.
They might. I mean, that was
Yeah.
a Paul H. Dunn thing.
Mm,
Oh God.
yeah.
And he was just not one they wanted in there. They knew he's lying the whole time.
I bet they did.
Yeah, they did. He
Mm.
got investigated by the Ensign long before Lynn Packer did his book. And they figured out, he was making up all these stories and like, oh, we can't talk about that. And so they just covered it up. But
Amazing.
he's got too much influence. We can't talk about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a 70.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. God.
Huh.
Okay. So I
Yeah.
don't know. We'll see. I don't know. He just he makes me think of the pig guards in the Return of the Jedi. I keep wanting to see tusks coming out of his mouth.
Uh,
Oh,
yeah, that's a very appropriate descriptor.
thank you.
Um, yeah, I think I kind of align a bit more with you, Julie. I think he's just too out there. He's left too much controversial stuff behind that there's too much baggage, right?
Yeah.
And someone like Kieran, right? Like he just came out of left field. Nobody was expecting him. I
No.
mean, he had given what one general conference talk before being called, and there's a lot of 70s who are repeat. They make a speech every other or every general conference who seem like they would be picked before Kieran.
Right.
So, who knows what the needs of the church are when the vacancy, is officially
Yeah.
announced to be open, what the needs will be at that time for another PR person, another lawyer, another, surgeon. Who knows?
Another BYU president.
Yeah. Ugh.
So many of those. Or is that guy that was in charge of the SCMC?
Hmm.
Wasn't he made a 70 last time or the time before? What was his name?
Can't remember.
He's scary. Or is he in charge of BYU? I can't remember.
No, no. I think he was put in the 70s, but I can't remember the guy's name.
Yeah.
We talked
That's
about it on the show, but
we
then
did.
we talked about, 30 other talks and, you know,
Yeah.
6 other hours worth of material, and I can't remember.
Yeah. Oh, it's creepy.
Yeah. I mean, that would be right. I mean, that's a surveillance expert, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
somebody
and
that the church needs up there.
that would be that I would say would be a front runner just because of that. I mean the modern day Danite.
Yeah.
Um yeah, yeah. I mean Suarez and Gong, they're just woke choices, but these others, yeah. It's frightening.
Yeah. They always got, a position to fill, right?
Yeah,
They always have an agenda to accomplish.
yeah. And that's I mean having a PR person made absolute sense because of all the bad press they get over their billions of dollars
Mhm.
and not spending it, only and they make a big deal out of spending some on humanitarian aid, the amount they make in a day of interest, but it doesn't make any dent in what they have
No.
at all.
Well, and how they calculate those numbers too, like a huge chunk of that is donated labor.
Yeah.
That's not even dollars that are coming out of their coffers or
Mm-mm.
supplies that are coming out of the bishop's storehouse. It's just members of the church who are doing work on, with helping hands shirts on or with, whatever any of the other church organizations and
Right.
going and doing those service hours.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, when you have a natural disaster and you have, 5 to 10 elders quorums from all the local wards show up and, have a couple hundred people out there who are, doing work, like those labor hours add up fast. Those dollar numbers add up really, really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So
They sure do.
yeah.
Ugh.
Uh, I don't know. I don't know. It'll be interesting. We might.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, another person we might get is someone who is like specifically a finance person, like N. Eldon Tanner was, right? Like we haven't
He
had a
was a
proper
big one.
replacement of a.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was the last like true finance guy who was in the apostles, in the presidency, and just, that his job has never been replaced.
No.
Probably because it's taken up by so many committees and by the presiding bishop and so many of that. But we we might get Gerald Case, the former presiding bishop.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Oh, yeah.
That could be an interesting pick as well, because he's not young enough to ever stand likelihood of becoming prophet, but he would be able to bring his finance management and hedge fund expertise into the apostles. So
Right.
yeah, there's an interesting pick.
That is. Hmm. It's a frightening thought. God. Who was the longest running prophet? Wasn't it Brigham Young? Wasn't he in the longest out of all of them? Like 30
I
years or
think he
something?
was. I believe so.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, it was 47 to 77.
Yeah, that's 30 years.
So
I was young as a prophet. Not as young as Joseph was, but 47 is young. That's about Wasn't Monson
No,
something like,
not age 47, from 1847.
oh, 1847. Okay. How old was he
And
then
he was,
He was like 75 or something.
when he died or
yeah,
when he
when he
was
I think
born?
died,
so.
Yeah, he
yeah.
went
So he would have been like, yeah, early
40s.
40s. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's about how old Monson was when he was put into the Quorum of the 12, right? He was
Probably.
25 when he was made a stake president. And when he was
And
put
I
in the
think it was in
Quorum
the
of the
30s.
12, he was
Yeah,
pretty
30s,
young,
40s.
somewhere under there. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
like late 30s, early 40s, somewhere around there. Yeah. Though he wasn't that long as a prophet. It was like 10 years, wasn't it? Maybe longer. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
was it 06 to 16 or 08 to 16, I think.
Okay. It
Uh,
felt like Hinckley was in forever, but that's because he was acting prophet with the two prophets
Yeah.
before him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I mean all the way back to Kimball.
All the way back to Kimmel, yeah,
But
because
Benson and Hunter, I mean, they were a very brief times that he was
Hunter was
running the
barely
church.
a year.
Yeah.
But yeah, with Kimmel, Benson, Hunter, it was just yeah. I remember when I think it was Hunter. Yeah, Hunter was right before him. When he died, there were people at BYU who were like, "Finally, Hinckley gets to be the actual boss,
Yeah.
not the acting one."
Yeah.
All these things they couldn't get away with saying now.
Yeah, right. They'd get some musket fire.
I mean, and they really, I mean, if they'd been reported, they probably wouldn't have gotten away with it then. I mean, these were English teachers for sure. They would not have gotten away with it. If they'd been in the business or law departments, they would have. But English teachers, they were like the
They're
philosophy
expendable.
department. They're
Yeah.
expendable. They had this,
Hmm.
the Saren's eye on them all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
Uh,
God.
yeah. Any other thoughts, predictions, or considerations for General Conference?
Yeah.
I mean, we spend a bit of time on predicting the apostle that it's going to replace Nelson once he dies, or when it's announced that he has been dead for the past month.
And we already buried him.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Speaking
Um,
of the White Horse prophecy, it's getting to the point that even Never Mormons are mentioning it. I saw, do you know who Robert Evans is? Like the host of Behind the Bastards.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um, he like requoted post on BlueSky. Someone says, the more that Elon Trump junta antagonizes the CIA, the more likely the Mormon White Horse prophecy becomes. And it gives me no real pleasure to report that. And he says, this is the most absurd possible outcome. So I think we have to treat it as the likeliest.
wow.
That's pretty good.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Hmm. It's strange that it's made its way beyond just like the Mormon zeitgeist. It's entering. I mean, I guess with Mitt Romney running, like that kind of popularized the idea, but now it's
Mm,
a very different world from when Mitt Romney was running.
right. Oh, that's funny.
He's like, Brigham Young. You have to do an episode on Brigham Young.
Yeah. Please do. Please, guys, please do it. Yeah.
Oh God.
So uh, I don't understand how Joseph Smith would said the White Horse prophecy and said the Constitution's gonna be hang by a thread. But at the meantime, in the Council of 50, he wrote his own uh, constitution and I don't understand how how he can write his own constitution when he prophesied that it's that he has to that the Mormons have to protect the Constitution.
Like
Seems a bit
America back
hypocritical.
then.
Yeah. It's very hypocritical for sure.
I don't think it was
Mm,
hypocritical. I think it was the official constitution will hang by a thread, and that's when a Mormon will come in to
right.
save it
Mm,
by imposing their own constitution, the Council of 50's constitution.
okay.
That's how they'll save the American Union is by supplanting and replacing the Constitution as it stands.
Which, in essence, is not saving the American Union. It's just creating your own.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that's called an
Mm,
insurrection,
Yep,
right?
that's
mm,
exactly it, right? God. Ugh, people are
Like
so weird.
America, the American government, Brigham was giddy about the Civil War,
Yeah.
thinking it was going to ruin it.
Yeah,
Oh, for sure.
of
And he was
course.
Yeah.
sure the South was going to win and slavery was going to continue and all that shit. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's the
Mhm.
thing too. And I hear from TBMs about how the early church did not support slavery. I'm like, actually it did. Oh, Brigham had slaves and was sure, and this is what he prophesied. Oh, well, that was Brigham Young. I'm like, yeah, as prophet of the church, that's what he prophesied.
I mean, Brigham had people consecrate their slaves to the church. Like,
Yep.
I don't know how you get much more of a statement, a pro-slavery statement than that. That no, not only is it okay for people to own black people, it's okay for our church to own the black people. Like,
Yeah. As well
oh, he
as
wasn't
the Native
racist.
Americans, as well as everything else. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm. Fascinating. Yeah. I
It's,
think the next Mormon politician, the next like a big name Mormon politician is going to be because like Mitt Romney has been so jettisoned. He burned every political bridge when he voted to remove Trump after the first impeachment. So I think it'll be very, very interesting to see who the next big Mormon politician is.
yeah.
Um,
And that was interesting too, because I wondered what happened behind the scenes on that. Because, he was representing Utah and he didn't run again. So I was like, the church has the committees that come in and tell the politicians here in Utah what they're supposed to be doing, especially the state legislature, but they also do it with the representatives and the senators from here. So, what did somebody say to him? Is that why he didn't run again? Did the church tell him not to?
I don't know. I think that he might have been making some kind of, a harebrained calculus that, hey, if Trump becomes an impeached president or becomes such an unpopular president, if America decides to reject Trumpism, then he still stands as a resolute classic conservative, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, uh,
And he knew it didn't matter.
yeah, yeah.
So he could do whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But so I think that he was hedging his bets that the immune system of the American politics would actually cut out and kill the disease of populism that Trump has capitalized on, and I think he calculated wrong
Yeah, he did. I mean, it's obvious he calculated wrong. Yeah, he got
because
put
I
back
mean, he
in.
still has so many years left to be a viable politician.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still so liked in Utah, and he's still just, such a, I mean, look, he made a ceremonial vote against Trump, but like it was like what 98 or 99% of his votes were in line with Trump
Mm.
and with the ultra conservative movement. So it's like he was the exact conservative that every conservative liked. He just didn't like Trump. So uh, maybe he thought that that would buy him some goodwill with the old school classic conservative movement that would reject Trump, but they've just been silenced.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know what sense to make out of it.
None.
But the next one will be really, really interesting.
Yeah.
I remember there. I mean, there was a lot of hay made about the Operation Underground Rail or Tim Ballard about
Yes.
him possibly making a bid for it, and like that, I think would have made a very interesting Mormon politician right there.
He's a good showman.
Yeah,
Not a good person though.
well, and I mean, he has all of the hallmarks of a classic conservative politician. He's got sex abuse scandals in his past. He's
Mm-hmm.
got hypocritical teachings about going and rescuing kids when actually he's causing more harm to them. I mean, he does all the things that conservatives absolutely love, and he's got the force of personality behind him. So I don't know. I think he could be someone who would be an appealing politician for the conservative movement.
Mm. Was the church behind the filming of his story?
Not officially. I think I'm trying to remember. It seems like there was a Mormon discussions episode that went into the funding
Mm-hmm.
of his of the whole, not just the documentary, but of the entire Operation Underground Railroad. And I think they found, and I could be completely misremembering this, but I'm pretty sure that they found that there was ties to a Mormon adjacent, like media investment group
Mm,
that had some kind of shadowy tie. But I'm probably misremembering it.
okay. Wasn't sure. Still haven't watched the movie.
No, me neither. Watching that shit.
Was friends with Apostle Ballard, so I think
That's right.
there was a connection there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently, uh, Apostle Ballard gave Tim like a list of like wealthy people to ask for donations.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Though he's not admitting to it, but yeah,
Yeah,
Of course not. That's bad press.
yeah.
Yeah. And he's
but
dead
he
anyways.
died. He died right when that scandal came out. So
Yeah. Crazy
That
stuff.
movie was even in Japan,
Was it?
actually.
Was it?
interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you meet anybody who had watched it before? Like, did people talk about it much?
Uh, I've seen people on on Twitter that's was talking about it, and there were previews on YouTube that had lots of views in Japanese.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there is an ad campaign behind that. There is definitely a Mormon
Mm,
funded ad campaign that made that happen, right?
Hmm.
probably, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. It was a huge one for that movie.
Mm.
Yeah. I was a little surprised at how much, but kind of died once the scandal started hitting.
Yeah.
So I was really happy about it not showing up everywhere on my feeds. Yes.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I
Very
wanted to
strange.
because of it, the actor Jim Caviezel. I always forget which came first, the V or the Z in his name. I have to look at it. Sorry, everyone. Sorry, sir, for if I mispronounced it on one of those. But I like him as an actor, and so I kind of wanted to see it because of that. Then I'm like, no, I don't want to see
Hmm.
it.
Yeah. No, I'm not watching it. No.
Yeah.
I'd rather watch 2000 Mules, and I'm not watching that shit.
What is that?
That's the Dinesh D'Souza documentary about the election, the 2016 or 2020 election fraud.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
that he had to take down because the people who he had shown in the documentary, he didn't censor their faces, and they became attacked, and
Oh,
they lawyered up and got him forced him to take down
oh,
the
wow.
movie, and the production company pulled the whole thing, and it was a huge debacle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So stupid. Lots of bad movies out there. Lots of
Yeah,
good
there
movies.
are.
Shannon, can we maybe spoil our next episode and talk about a fun movie that you and I watched recently? I would like to talk about something that's not so depressing.
That's
If
right.
everyone's
The
cool with
movie
us
that's
shifting
the
gears.
episode coming out tomorrow. Right. We watched Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And yeah, that was so much fun. Have you guys seen that?
A long time ago.
Long
Yeah.
time ago.
It
Yeah.
came out in 2000, so it's 25 years ago. Oh God, that was fun. It's just I don't know. For me, well, the fun thing about it is it makes me actually want to go read Homer's Odyssey again. Um
Yeah, same here. Because it was high school when I studied it for English, and I haven't read it since. So I would love to read it now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one. It was high school and then one more time in college. I read it when I was an English major, but kind of wish I'd studied the Iliad too, but anyway, so yeah, that one, oh God, that one's a fun movie. The music in it was fun, even though I don't like that kind of music.
Yeah. I mean, it's all bluegrass and, old 1930s, 40s style, whatever that genre of music is.
Yeah.
But after what, okay, so we watched it, and then I've just had the soundtrack, like the song stuck in my head, in my mind, playing the scenes over. So today, like when I got up and was getting ready, I had to run a couple of errands. I've been listening to it in between edit stints for the episode. And it's so much better to listen to the music because like when I'm watching the movie, I'm not paying attention to the lyrics, I'm paying attention to what's going on screen, and some of it is relevant to the lyrics, but like listening to the soundtrack stand alone, I'm like focusing on the lyrics and realizing how awesome the song choices are. They're
Yeah.
like so appropriate. Perfect. It's
Very
so
fitting
good
for
for it.
that time period.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think
Yeah.
the soundtrack actually won some awards.
It did. It won several
Yeah.
Grammys. Yeah,
Yeah.
including Album of the Year. Yeah. And Tim Blake Nelson even got a Grammy for the singing he did on one of them. He did his own singing. George Clooney did not, and I don't think that Turturro did either. But one of the other singers in the film was the one that they actually used for Clooney's. But one thing that's kind of cute is the Warby sisters, the three, when they sang, it's a song that the Carter girls sang at that age. June Carter being the woman who later married, oh, ah, just lost his name. The movie Walk the Line, Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
Yeah, Johnny Cash. June Carter married him. So her and two of her sisters. And the song itself that they do on there, these girls singing it, sounds very much like the Carter sisters when they sang it, which I thought was a nice little tribute.
Are you
But
are you talking the Siren song or
no, no, the three girls, the three daughters, the little
Oh,
girls.
oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
so,
Very good.
yeah. No, the sirens, that was a whole different thing. I think that was written specifically for that. It wasn't music of the time period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I had to so I just had it on Spotify looking at like the about the artists with the a bunch of these and the Lonesome Valley that they sing at the end, the three Gravediggers. I thought this was really interesting because that's actually sung originally by the Fairfield Four, a quartet, and the Fairfield Four started as what was it? Uh I'm trying to find it. It started as a duet in the 20s, and then in the early 30s, it became a trio, and it wasn't
Hmm.
until the 1940s that it was a quartet.
Hmm.
So in the film, it's actually a trio that's
Yeah.
singing this song that was actually, originally sang by this quartet. And yeah, it
Interesting.
was very beautifully done.
Yeah, it was.
It was really cool.
Ah, that's funny. I think one of my favorite little bits is watching the KKK Grand Dragon sing a song that's a black gospel song.
Well, so
I
that
laughed so hard over that.
that actually wasn't a black gospel song. That's "Oh Death" by Ralph
But
Stanley.
the way he sang it sounds like a black gospel singer.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
And that was a thing I got a kick out of because I was like, yeah, Grand Dragon of the KKK. That
yeah,
was good.
that was very interesting. That
Yeah.
whole scene, and like I had to, because like the lyrics to "Oh Death" are so appropriate to that scene as well. Because I
Hmm.
mean, that's they're about to have a big old good old fashioned Mississippi lynching. Uh,
Oh,
so the lyrics of that were so beautiful. All of the song, all of the songs, this song selection was so good. Um,
yeah,
mm.
it was.
But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it because like it's just an intermingling of so many different mythologies and story archetypes. Uh,
Hmm.
that was a lot of fun for me to see played out and depicted by the Coen brothers.
Yeah. They did a really good job.
What are some other Coen brothers movies?
Oh, God, I'm trying to remember. Give me a minute.
Because I was while we were doing errands today, I was talking with Annie about the movie, and she's never seen it. And I was like, it's a Coen Brothers movie, you know. Um, wait, what other films have they done? And I couldn't immediately
The Ballad of
think.
Buster Scruggs in 2018. Um, Give me a minute. That's the first one that shows under Joel Cohen as I'm looking him up. Okay, let's see. Fargo, they did.
Small
Fargo.
men.
No Country for Old
What was
Men.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, No Country for Old Men.
True Grit.
Big
The
Lebowski.
recent one, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is better than the John Wayne one.
Mm, okay.
You have no idea how many people get mad at me over that. Burn After Reading. Yeah, No Country for Paris Je t'aime. The Lady Killers. Oh, that one was good.
Huh.
The Big Lebowski.
Lady
Yeah.
Killers. Wasn't that a Forrest Gump actor, Tom Hanks? Wasn't that a Tom Hanks movie?
No. That is, hang on.
Because I watched the
Oh, it is
original.
Tom Hanks. Sorry, you're right.
Yeah, because I watched the original 55 Lady Killers. Um, and then I watched then Annie and my mother-in-law watched the newer one, the Coen brothers one.
Yeah. And
And
the original had Alec Guinness, wasn't it?
possibly, I don't know.
Yeah. An eccentric, if not charming, Southern professor and his
Goodness, yeah.
crew pose as a classical ensemble in order to rob a casino, all under the nose of his unsuspecting but sharp old landlady.
Fascinating.
That's yeah. Good old Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is just fun to watch, but
Yeah,
yeah, Raising Arizona, which I actually hated.
never
But
seen that one.
I just hated it. Barton Fink is another one. The Hudsucker Proxy. Yeah, there's several they've done that have been really good.
Yeah, and Big Lebowski. It's just that's another all-time great. I
That's
love that
one I've
film.
also never seen.
Really? Is that on our list? Is that on
No,
our fun watch list?
nope, I didn't put it on
It
there.
it needs to be. Oh, it's such a goodie. All right, I'm gonna add it to the list. It's a really great movie.
He did The Tragedy of Macbeth, which I want to see because it's Denzel Washington in it as Macbeth and
Huh.
Frances McDormand as Lady Macbeth. Let's see, who's Iago? I need to see this. Oh, come on, who's Iago? Oh, not Iago's Othello. Sorry.
Yeah,
Ah,
he's actually playing Othello right now on Broadway.
is he?
Denzel, yeah.
That's right. And he did it in the movie. No,
Yeah.
no, that was Lawrence Fishburne. Um, that was one directed by Kenneth Branagh. He did Othello, and when Lawrence Fishburne played him, it was the very first time a black man got to play Othello, who is a black Moor. Everyone else did it in blackface. And so,
Very
yeah, but
interesting.
Macbeth, I want to see that. Denzel Washington does well in, oh my gosh, it's also got Brendan Gleeson, but he does well in Shakespeare. Um, so the question becomes now, does he make them change their accents? Because one of the things I love about Branagh is he doesn't make anybody do an English accent. He just has them do their normal accent. And he's one who's I think he is the best director for Shakespeare out there because he interprets it such a way that it feels like normal speech patterns. You don't feel like you're hearing a Shakespeare thing. And they're saying it exactly the way Shakespeare wrote it, but it feels like a normal speech pattern. So his Hamlet is the best ever
Shit.
done.
Yeah, I found it's easier to watch it, to understand, than just read it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And when you get these like Much Ado About Nothing, where Keanu Reeves and Denzel Washington are playing half brothers in it, and you just don't even think about the fact that one is black and the other's white. And so it's so interesting watching him. But yeah, his Hamlet, oh God, that was fantastic. I want to see him do Lear, King Lear. King Lear is the hardest one of all of the plays to understand, and I really want Branagh to do it and to be King Lear. I really want that. Laurence Olivier did it. I think it was the last thing he filmed was King Lear. Diana Rigg was Regan, the daughter, and I can't remember who else was in it. And that was really good. And I introduced my younger sister to it. She was 8 years old and sat there, watched it with me, completely caught up in it, just like I was. I take pride in the fact that I taught her to love Shakespeare. Thank you very much.
Delightful.
Anyway, but I want to see that, The Tragedy of Macbeth. Looks like it's black and white too.
Mhm.
Damn. Okay. All right, Shannon, stop. Okay. Tangents galore. This is Shannon speaking.
we enjoy the tangents, so
I'm glad. Because I can't help it. It just happens. They're worse now than they ever were before. Oh my God.
don't you mean better now than ever
Better
before?
now than they ever were before. They just
Yeah.
take over. And then Bryce is over there going, Shannon, Shannon, stop, stop. Yeah.
Only when we are like have like a thing to talk about, like a segment to get through. Like most of the time, it's like, yeah, we're just chatting, we're just
It's
talking, having a
okay.
good
This is
time.
more interesting. This is funny.
Yeah,
All right, now we got to go back to the serious.
yeah. Truth. Oh, that's the truth. Uh,
Oh, good times. Yep.
Speaking of the serious, Julie, you actually attended something that I attended only virtually. I wanted to ask you about, talk a little bit about if you're willing to share about the Journal of Mormon polygamy and what it was like there.
It's pretty well attended. Well, yeah, I didn't expect to be that many people there.
How many? About how many?
Probably a couple hundred.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah,
For
it
a
was pretty
first
well.
conference,
Yeah, it was really good.
ever. Huh, that's awesome.
Yeah, Cheryl was tired but really proud.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, all of the chaos of running a conference and then, yeah, I can't imagine. I enjoyed it though. Like the presentations were really good. I mean, just like every conference ever, they had some tech difficulties, but I mean, most of the presentations were completely intelligible and were really, really interesting. All of the panel discussions were fully listenable and really, really interesting. Um, I mean, there was the panel with the filmmaker, the practicing polygamist, Maxine Hanks, and one other person that I thought was just wonderfully interesting.
that was interesting.
Yeah. And yeah, just like all taking in their different experiences and talking about, yeah, just what life is like, you know, doing filmmaking with polygamous people and studying them, practicing polygamy, and then Maxine and all of her scholarship and everything that's led up to her position as, you know, a well-known figure in the feminist Mormon study spaces and just all of it. That was a really fun panel discussion.
How long was it? How many days?
It's like Friday evening and then all Saturday, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
I sent you a link, but I don't think you saw it.
I
I
might
sent
not have.
Bryce a link, yeah.
Oh no,
Okay.
I was
Oh,
already
you already
attending.
did.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Don Bradley's was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, about the guy who in the 1880s went and talked to all of the lot of his wives,
Mhm.
Joseph's wives.
Yeah, Andrew Jensen and
Yeah,
how he compiled
but
lists.
they weren't really receptive to that in 1880s.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and he was doing it specifically for the Temple Lock case, right?
Yeah,
As part of the fact finding for it.
he did. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, Don Bradley's talk was really interesting. I thought Barbara Jones Brown, she did the keynote speech. No, plenary speech, opening night.
yeah,
Yeah.
Friday after the
Yeah.
panel. Yeah,
Yeah. That was a really interesting talk as well.
yeah,
Yeah. All of it. Yeah. I enjoyed all of it so much.
yeah. There was a person who had a little bit of cognizance that they I didn't hear the question because the mic wasn't on. But, like I heard the like last part of it, and she said something about like Joseph Smith never lied, but they were lying about post manifesto polygamy. I was like, yeah, it's kind of hard to square if you're really in the Joseph didn't. Got a little cognizant there.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But Barbara was like really nice. She's like, well, you know, I'm not an expert on this. I don't know on Joseph's polygamy. So like she kind of like deflected a little bit really nicely.
Yeah.
So she didn't get into it.
That's funny.
And
Yeah.
she did talk about D. Michael Quinn having on his hard drive basically a rough draft of Post Manifesto Polygamy too. So it sounds like that's a project that Signature is working on, which will be so interesting.
Hmm.
I mean, when I did my interview with him, that was when he was when we were at Sunstone and Short Creek, and he gave a presentation. It was all about Post Manifesto Polygamy, and it's interesting to know that that was just one little chunk of one of his chapters from the book, it seems like, that he was working on.
Hmm.
Yeah. You interviewed him in Warren Jeffs' old house.
Yeah. What a crazy,
Yeah.
crazy, crazy weekend that was.
It was fun but crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Jeff's is still in jail, right?
Yeah. I think he will be forever, right?
Yeah, I think so.
No parole or anything. Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember what all that was. But the group is still going, right?
Yeah, they're in they're I guess in the classical sense they're in diaspora right
Yeah,
now.
they're kind of dying out pretty much.
Yeah.
Him, they're repairing everything.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. So like the community, the Short Creek settlement, or not settlement, it's not a settlement anymore. It hasn't been since the
yeah.
1880s. It's cities, the Twin Cities. They're rebuilding after all the damage that he caused and doing it's a thriving community now, and it never was under his tutelage. But there he does, I mean, still have a core of followers that have kind of spread out to Colorado and Texas and North and South Dakota, and they're just kind of all over in these little tiny pocket settlements now.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Ugh.
Um,
I had Brian Buchanan when I needed to bang my head against the wall. The big leggy deniers. Like,
yeah.
Oh dear.
yeah,
Oh, that's funny.
because yeah, Michelle Brady Stone says believe women when she talks about believing Emma, and but you mean only believe Emma because there's a lot of women that said they were married to him. So
Right.
Yeah.
there's a presentation Don Bradley gave that of all the women that said they were married to him.
Yeah. I I don't know. I think part of the whole narrative is that all of those women were cajoled into making those statements by Brigham Young, right? That's the entire idea behind the polygamy skepticism movement.
Hmm.
Because they wanted a lot for the
Yeah,
temple. Mhm.
correct.
Right.
Yeah. Because I mean, the temple lot did hinge on who was the one true successor church, therefore who had possession of this temple. So, Brigham Young had to prove, well, Brigham was dead, but the polygamists had to prove unequivocally that Joseph was a polygamist in order to claim the land deed for it. And the RLDS said, no, he was not a polygamist. We swear. um, and that was Joseph
We
the third.
promise on a stack of Bibles. Yeah. May
Yeah.
God strike me with lightning if I'm lying. Yeah. Got it.
Women still claimed after Brigham Young died. So, Andrew Jensen went in the 1880s.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's like,
I don't know. I just don't give that much credibility to Emma. I'm sorry, I just can't. I mean, she was playing her own game, and she had so much of her reputation staked on Joseph didn't practice polygamy. So even to her deathbed.
that she didn't think, Emma didn't think polygamy was theological or was from God. So she wasn't lying when she said, no, he didn't practice it. Because she didn't think it was a thing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I
I
mean,
thought,
she left a lot of
yeah.
dodges, a lot of in her her final interview. She left a whole lot of wiggle room
Yeah.
with the language that she used.
Yeah. Me and Claire Barris afterwards were like, now she's embarrassed.
Yeah.
She didn't want to have that legacy on her. So,
Well, yeah, and I mean, so her entire reputation as the matriarch of the RLDS church too was my husband didn't practice polygamy, so she had everything to lose and ran the risk of the RLDS church lapsing back into polygamy
Yeah,
if she told the truth. Because if, you know,
that's
she
it.
gives this deathbed confession that Joseph was a polygamist, how does the RLDS church change at that time? Right?
Joseph would have been like, well, my dad practiced polygamy. Ding, I have to.
Yeah. Oh man, bummer. Old dad just got me again. Uh, yeah.
Oh
So,
God.
yeah, I mean, look, people are gonna lie. People are gonna lie to protect their reputations, even on their deathbed. They're still gonna do it. Especially when it's their entire, like, all of their kids and grandkids are, you know, their livelihoods are staked on this, their reputations are staked on this, the historicity of the Book of Mormon is staked on all of this, like the Doctrine and Covenants, all of these things are staking on you just going with the lie until death. People are going to lie after they die. They're going to do that.
I was just reading the William Clayton's journal that the Tanners published,
Mhm.
and uh, it talked about like how Joseph was with the in the room with like Partridge sisters, and like Emma was like yelling at Joseph and like irritated and stuff, and a lot of things about polygamy. I was wondering what the polygamy deniers are gonna deal with it when the journal gets published. Mm.
Well, I think what one thing that they want out of the journal is they want evidence to show that William Clayton conspired with the polygamists like Brigham Young and Heber Kimball in order to fabricate 132.
Right.
And I think they believe that this, you know, whatever the 8% of the William Clayton Journal that hasn't been published, that's still suppressed right now, will be the smoking gun evidence that they need to truly once and for all exonerate Joseph Smith. And it's like,
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure that what hasn't been released is just like him talking about having a menage a trois. Like that's
Hmm.
really like what we're talking about here, and some temple ordinance stuff. Like that's
Hmm.
I think that's probably all that's really in that journal, and it's, you know, sensitive material to the pearl clutching church that they still don't want to release it.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But
there was a group that we went to special collections at the library, and they like got out a bunch of polygamy stuff that we can look at, and like an 1830s version of the Book of Mormon too.
very cool.
Yeah, and there's a like old edition of Annalisa Webb's book.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Wife number 19.
yeah,
Oh, did they let you hold
you would
these,
have
or
loved
were you
that.
looking at it in like glass casing?
No, they had it out.
Oh, wicked cool. Oh,
Yeah,
so cool.
we could touch the books with our hands, but there was like photographs that we had to like wear gloves for,
Okay.
and they had us wipe our hands down before
Yeah.
touching everything. But
What? No cotton gloves?
Not with books. No, you do not wear books or gloves when you're looking through books because it reduces the sensitivity on your hands and you're more likely to tear, especially
Ah,
old paper.
so all the movie things where they show them with cotton
Yep.
gloves.
And archivists
Wow.
get mad at every single movie that shows librarians and old archivists, you know,
Interesting.
using gloves like that on books.
And
With
so they
things like
just let you use the
photographs.
bare hands, huh?
Yeah, you use bare
Interesting.
hands for books.
Wow.
You
Okay.
you you de-oil them, obviously. You
Right,
wipe it down
right,
with sanitizer or, you know, a solution. But that's
right,
all the
right.
but yeah.
All right, we definitely got to watch that In the Name of the Rose.
Okay. Is that Matt in the chat is talking about it?
No,
No. Oh, no,
I
that's
told you
Paint
the
Your
other day.
Wagon. Okay.
Yeah, Paint Your Wagon is what he's talking about.
Okay.
Um,
there's a
but
polygamist. Yeah, polygamist characters in there.
he says he was asking me if I caught the Mormon reference in Paint Your Wagon, which I was like, I haven't seen it yet. What is it? And
Oh,
I'm
you
like, spoilers, not telling
haven't?
you anything.
I haven't seen him in years.
I may have seen it years and years
Yeah,
ago, but I don't remember. I've seen thousands of movies since.
Yeah, and they actually, I sent Bryce pictures of this. They actually like showed photographs of the temple garments in the 1800s, like in an expose book and in a newspaper.
Wicked cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Those were interesting pictures. Yeah, I mean but it's exposés, so it's kind of not surprising that they would publish something like that, right?
Yeah.
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 I don't know what the newspaper when that was from because like the copy didn't wasn't very legible.
No,
You could just
interesting.
see the picture, yeah.
Okay. Huh. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Oh, Name of the Rose was the Sean Connery as a monk detective. And
Yes.
I presume that's where he's using gloves handling old books.
No,
Oh, okay. That's not
it's
what
something
spawned
else.
that reference. Okay.
It's something else.
Okay.
It's just, I'm trying not to give you spoilers, so quit asking questions.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Please.
That's a hard rule in our friendship.
I'm trying to be nice to you.
Well, I spoiled Don't Look Up for You when it came out a few years ago.
Say it
Remember
again.
that?
Say it again. Your mic was
We
weird.
spoiled Don't Look Up for Bryce when it
Yeah.
came up. He forgot.
Yep.
Oh my
So
God. Yeah.
hopefully you forgot what I told you by then.
Yeah, I did. uh, and I mean, it's also
I'm
like
sorry.
it's also, I mean, just kind of
Yeah.
by the design of the film, pretty early on that what the ending is going to be, I think.
Yeah.
Just yeah, I mean, you only get about 20 minutes into the movie and you're like, "Oh, shit. Okay. This is the kind of movie we're watching here, is it? All right."
Yep.
Yeah.
There's some movies that I don't spoil for people unless they specifically ask me for it. Because, ones like Sixth Sense and Usual Suspects and some of these where you've got that twist ending where all of a sudden everything from beginning to end changes in your mind. And I don't actually give spoilers on those because it does ruin the entire movie if you don't, if you go into it and don't get to watch it with a fresh watch. But yeah, so
Well, and it's also funny because like that's the hard rule in our friendship. And then Shannon also asks me for spoilers,
I
and I
do.
don't give them to you almost
Rude.
ever.
I obey your rule, but you
I
don't
know.
obey mine.
Nope. I'm the worst.
So rude. Maybe
So
I
rude.
should spoil
Spoilers.
something.
That doesn't
No,
make it ruin my enjoyment at all. So
fair.
spoil away.
I'm
Yeah,
one
I
of these
should start
people.
spoiling stuff when you ask
I
me.
start a book, I'll read the first chapter, then I read the last three, and then I start over at the beginning again. That's what I do with a new book.
I
That's
think
me.
there's a term for that. It's called sadism. Is that right?
It's called Stephen King Hates Me. He published The Green Mile as a serial of 4 books because of people like me. He didn't want him reading the end.
Which
Okay.
that's another one we need to watch.
Yes, we do. We need to watch that. I mean, I hesitate to say I love it, but I really respect that movie. It's a very, very good movie. It's a very good story by Stephen King. And I'm not always a fan of Stephen King, but this was a fantastic piece of work.
Does the film, because like The Shining, the film and the book are two totally different stories. I mean, they're basically just stories that happen in the same setting, and that's about it. That's the only real similarities. How well does the Green Mile movie hold up to the book?
That I don't know because I
Oh.
refuse to read the book because that's what he did.
Fair. Gotta have the spoilers.
Yep, I'm just like, no, if you're going to do that, then I won't read your book. So there.
Mhm.
Yep.
Uh, Best Stephen King, Shawshank Redemption. Okay.
Absolutely.
Haven't seen that either.
That one,
I read it.
needs to be on the list too.
Yeah.
That one. Yeah. But both those movies, really super good. You got Tom Hanks in Green Mile. You got Chris Sarandon. Wait, no, not Chris Sarandon. Sorry, Tim Robbins in and Morgan Freeman in Shawshank.
Very good.
Yeah. and the bad guy in Green Mile is played perfectly by the actor who plays him. Absolutely perfectly.
Mhm.
I cannot think of anyone else who could have done it as well, actually. Maybe Tom Hollander, but yeah,
Cool.
it
Now we
was,
have to watch it.
yeah,
I
see, I
have to watch
told
it.
you.
Yeah. And you won't even spoil it by telling me who the actor is that plays the villain because I don't want to know until I've seen the movie and I know who the villain is.
Oh, I'm not even gonna have to spoil that. It's gonna be obvious from the moment he walks on screen, but
Oh.
yeah,
Will just commented Shawshank is the GOAT on IMDb
the
top
greatest of all
250.
time. Yep.
Wow, very
It's
interesting.
a fantastic film.
There's another film that I wanted to watch with you, Over the Garden Wall, and
Yeah, you
that's
do.
also ranked on top 250 of IMDb.
Yeah.
And that was a COVID watch for me. It was a
Mm.
very, very
Film
good
or
animated
TV
film.
series?
It's animated and it's done in 10-minute parts.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So, it's a standard film length, but it was released as like these 10 individual pieces. On I think on like YouTube or something. No, Cartoon Network. It was Cartoon Network that did it. And yeah, it's excellent, absolutely excellent. A real like a proper good mind bender and like an alternate reality like dreamscape, but by the end it like resolves everything and it's just a very beautiful story.
Yeah.
Very, very beautifully done.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Of
Someone burgled my turts.
course,
Uh,
it might be fun to sit down and just watch a fun movie this week before General Conference, but Green Mile is not the one to do for that.
Green Mile's not the one. You need to rewatch Arcane season 1 so we can
I
get in
do.
Arcane season 2.
I do.
Oh,
Yes.
it's
But we have
so
a
good.
lot to do.
It's
Yeah.
strange.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's strange to me that season 2 isn't rated as high as season 1, but I thought the story was actually better in season 2,
Hmm. How
which
much
is
time
yeah.
between the filming of the two?
Let me think. The first one came out in was it 2019? I think it was
Was it?
pre-COVID.
Okay.
And
Because I was
then
thinking it's
season
been a few
2
years.
just came out at the end of 24.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's a long span between them, and it makes sense. Like when you see the animation style, how dense it is, how difficult it would be to animate, and like, oh yeah, and also a very good story. Like writing a
Yeah.
good story and writing really good dialogue like that, it just takes time. And I would so much rather wait 5 years for them to put out something that is perfect than to get something that's rushed and be disappointed with it forever.
Yeah. Like Game of Thrones.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I was actually fine with the ending though. But yeah.
Yeah.
I know that's a lone thing and people are like, "What? Didn't you want Danny to be queen?" I'm like, "Nope, she shouldn't be."
Well, and that was, I mean, she had the mad ruler in her blood, right?
Hmm.
So,
She's too willing to sacrifice innocent people because she's angry at one person. I was like, "Nope, mm-mm. You can't have that as a leader."
yeah, yep. And not a great tactician either. I mean,
No.
lost one of her dragons in an unnecessary fight.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have Matt White, Watership Down, where a reluctant leader and his prophetic brother bring a community into a safer life. That sounds provocative.
Yeah.
Gonna have to add that to our fun
Add
watch
it to the
list.
list.
That actually might even be for the show.
For a media great price sometime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Watership Down.
I always like it when people send in recommendations for movies.
Oh yeah, me too. And books and all the things
Yep.
really.
Everything. Because I'm just always spouting my mouth off with those all the time. So it's
Mhm.
nice when somebody's willing to do it to me.
Reciprocate it.
Then I feel like it's a conversation, not me just spouting.
Yeah.
At cardiac rehab, the nurse and that on one of the times I was there, they have to have a nurse there, and then they have like three of the therapists, the exercise therapists there. So anyway, but we were talking books. We're always talking books. Every one of them read, and they love me because I read. And so she brought up some to tell me to read. Um, by Kate Moore, the Radium Girls,
Uh,
about the women who were testing radium on them. And then,
they were like they were like painting like watch dials and all sorts of
yeah,
stuff with radium. They were the
yeah, they
workers.
were just like sacrificed for it.
Yeah,
And then what was the other one? The Woman No One Would Listen To, or something like that, by Kate Moore as well. So those are new books I've just recently got that I'm looking forward to reading.
excellent, excellent.
Yeah, in the middle of all of my Jane Austen fan fiction.
Yeah. Well, wait, did you tell listeners about you hanging out with a Jaff
Oh
author?
yeah. So with Jane Austen fan fiction, there's just a lot of authors. There's some groups on Facebook I'm in and everything, and I've gotten connected with ones. And there's one of them, she asked for some beta readers. And so I was like, I volunteer as tribute, because why not? And I've done it with a few of
As
them.
tribute.
Yeah, I just say that to all of them. And so I've actually helped her with 3 or 4 books now, and I'm in the middle of another one right now. And and she puts these really nice acknowledgments with my name on it in her books. It surprised me the first time I saw it. But anyway, so I enjoy doing it a lot, obviously. And a couple Saturdays ago, I she told me she was going to be at a boutique of all things near me here in the valley near me, and she's like, I'm going to be there on Saturday if you have time and want to come see me. And I was like, well, hell yes. So I went, even though it's been like 15, 20 years since I was last at a boutique here in Utah, because it's just not my thing, and everything. But it was so much fun getting to meet her and just sitting there. I mean, she was there with her mom because her mom makes chocolates and sells them, and so I just sat there with them for like 2 or 3 hours chatting. And she brought me as 2 of her books. Um, her first one she ever wrote. Let's see, The Redemption of Lydia Wickham. You can't because of my virtual screen, you can't see it. And then a more recent one called Character and Countenance, which is one I helped with, and she signed them for me and everything. And I was so surprised to get these physical copies of the books, but it was just really delightful to meet her. The other thing that was really nice, by the way, is they have chickens on their farm, and she just gives away the eggs because they get something like 5 dozen a day. She had somebody else who she was going to give 3 dozen to, but they changed their minds last minute. And so she's like, do you want 3 dozen eggs? I'm like, hell yeah. So I got 2 books and 3 dozen eggs. And it was wonderful. So anyway, I really enjoyed meeting her, and it was nice to have that connection. She posted a picture of us on her page and all that kind of thing. And so yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed
Well, I'm
it.
like, any chance that you get to meet an author is awesome, let
It's
alone an
always
author
nice.
that you help them with their book, right?
Right.
That's awesome.
I love speaking to authors. I would love to sit down and just interview her for whatever reason and just put it somewhere. I don't know. But I love speaking to them because I love finding out what their thought processes are like.
Yeah. Where their
And
inspiration is and all
yeah,
sorts of things.
some of my favorite interviews ever were with authors, Rogers Lasny. That was the first author I ever interviewed, and it was the best interview, not because I was a great interviewer, but because he was a great interviewee. And because I just stumbled around through the whole thing. It was my first time. But, it was so much fun. And I love hearing from people, like any kind of creative person, and why they write what they do, and how they come up with it. What happens? Do they get these little plot bunnies that just won't let them go, or whatever? And it is so delightful to hear, because I love finding out about other people's lives. It's just interesting to me. So yeah, very cool.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah,
That's a great way to spend a day.
it was wonderful.
Mhm.
So I was just like, we need to meet again. She lives probably 2 hours away from me, but she's like, I'll drive up there. We can go to lunch. It's like,
There you go. Even better.
not a problem. So yeah, I did. I very much enjoyed it. So I'm hoping there's a conference that happens down in Vegas every year. It would be really fun to go to. Um,
Is it an actual Jaff conference?
yeah,
Oh.
authors are there. They come, they read some of their own books, whatever, that kind of thing.
All-time favorite conference for Shannon to go
It
to.
would be.
all
And
time.
I'm
That's a
like,
bit.
be nice to have the money to go. I thought about it last year, but then my spouse lost their job and everything, and so I ended up paying to go to it virtually, which was hardly anything. But that was, I mean, they didn't really charge much. They charged something like $35 for it, but um, and we got a hell of a lot of swag from them. I think I got 5 ebooks out of it or something like that, and a bunch of other stuff.
Nice.
I was like,
Very
I'll take
nice.
it. A few audiobooks, everything. It was great. But it'd be fun just meeting the authors and hearing them talk about it. I mean, with her, she was at it and she was uncomfortable reading her own book in front of everybody, which was really cute. Because I mean, not all authors should read their own books out loud. That was one thing I noticed in that book, Closeted, we covered, as listening to
Yeah.
the author read it. I was like, okay, this is one time you should have hired somebody else. I
Yeah.
get why
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
because it's expensive, but you really should have because it would have been better.
hmm
However, it's okay. It's still a really good book.
Yeah. Voice acting, audiobooking, it's a skill set.
It's a really definite skill set, which reminds me, sort of, since we're talking, it's Jane Austen stuff because I can't help it. But on Instagram, there's this guy named Ben Fensome, Fensome. And what he does, he's been doing this for a while, is there's the 1995 miniseries of Pride and Prejudice starring Colin Firth and Jennifer L. And he will play scenes of it where he's acting out all the parts and it'll be the actual words said by in the film, but he's lip syncing to it, and he is dead on hilarious. So he's just taking stuff in his house, like when he's Darcy, he's got, for the cravat, it's just a pair of his socks hanging out of his shirt, kind of thing. He has this doily he uses in various different ways for whoever he's talking to, and that kind of thing. But his Lady Catherine is hilarious because her hat is just a lampshade. Anyway, so he's been doing that. Well, recently there was a book that came out about Charles Bingley, by a new author. It was his first book, and he writes of Bingley with this secret life as an assassin. And
That's delightful.
it
I
is.
love
It's
this.
really good. And Ben Fensome is for the first time narrating it. And so it was great getting the narration of it because I could finally hear what this guy's voice sounds like. But anyway, anyway, it's fun. It's super fun.
That's some good jam. That's
It
good jam.
is. I mean, still, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, the book is still the best bit of Jaff that makes me laugh so hard. I have to stop the play until I get myself under control because it is so funny and the narrator is perfect for it. But yeah, some of these, they're just delightful.
I need to just add that to my list right now.
Okay.
Because I just never have, and you talk about it so often, and
I
it's
do.
just a crying shame that I haven't actually done anything about it.
I think you would just laugh your head off.
Are you talking
Both movie and the book. I mean, they're both really different.
Seth Graham Smith?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I just need to get it. There's no reason
Just
to
get it.
not just get it. I mean, and then you and I can chat about it and laugh and have a good old time.
I love it. There's a prequel and a sequel to it written by somebody else, and they're all narrated by the same woman. And
The
they
cover is hilarious
isn't
too.
it so funny? They're not as good as this, but they are funny.
Okay.
But yeah, and Lady Catherine in the book is so funny because she's the best killer of zombies, and she doesn't like
Oh.
Elizabeth, so she sends her ninjas after her, and Elizabeth keeps, all this. Anyway,
Spoilers! Spoilers, Shan!
I didn't spoil anything. Oh, they all fight. They all fight.
I mean, yeah, of course.
The
It's a zombie
nature of-
apocalypse. They have to deal with it.
Yeah, and people complain about the movie because they're like, the costumes aren't right. And I'm like, it's zombies. What were you expecting? I'm like, really? They have to wear weapons. It's dumb to wear a weapon on your thigh under those skirts then. How do you get at it unless
The
you
hoop
have a
skirts.
slit in the side of your skirt? Ugh.
You have
I'm
to
like,
sacrifice
really?
fashion for a little practicality when it's zombies, all right?
I think they did a fantastic job with the costuming for the film and how they did it. It's just, I mean, the entire thing's tongue in cheek, for fuck's sake. So anyway, I really can't wait for you to hear it because
Okay.
you will laugh. I mean, just dead on laugh. It's just funny.
Here's a take I've never heard. Matt says Bridget Jones's Diary was a remake of
Yeah,
Pride and Prejudice.
it
Interesting.
absolutely is. Yeah, it
Hmm.
absolutely is. And there's also, oh, what's the one, a remake of Emma? You know,
Just the first one, wasn't it?
yeah, you know which one I'm talking
Yeah.
about. And Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
Which one is it? Ah, I gotta look it up.
Escapes me.
I'll look it up. I
uh,
can't remember the name of it.
Clueless? Will just
Clueless.
commented.
That's the one. That's the one.
Yes.
That's a remake
Lewis.
of Emma. Yeah.
Yes.
Bollywood does remakes of Jane Austen the best. They really do. She translates really, really well to the Indian culture. Um, yeah, and so yeah, they're fun. Anyway, but the newest Persuasion that's on Netflix is I just refuse to watch it because Anne Elliott's an alcoholic. And I'm just like, all right, you already fucked it up. You already fucked it up. No. And so, yeah, it gets a lot of hate in the Jane Austen universe,
Hmm. Okay.
and it should.
Okay. Well, there's that settled. Are we going to
Yes.
watch that?
So if you're going to watch one, I'll tell you which one to watch, which one is the best version of Persuasion to watch. Um,
I
that
need
one's,
to. I need to read it.
yeah,
And Sense and
it's,
Sensibility, and literally any other Jane Austen. The only one I've
yeah,
read
you
is
do.
Pride and Prejudice.
Those ones are good. Northanger Abbey is her take on Gothic novels. She got criticized for reading Gothic novels, so she decided to write one just because everyone was being so stupid.
Recommend that one because it's a parody
It is.
and it's gonna be you're not gonna understand it. It's gonna be bad if you don't understand what they're
Yeah,
parodying.
right.
Okay.
So
Exactly.
Fair.
yeah.
But what you get more of when you read them all is you start seeing what I keep saying, which is the villain is society itself. And you really see it in all of them because
Right.
you have girls facing the exact same issue each time. And it's, yeah. And that's the thing that's fantastic about it. And so, yeah, she used, especially with Pride and Prejudice, she used irony so much in it because, I had talked about this in my feminist literature 101 when I talked about Mary Wollstonecraft is, by the time Jane Austen was writing, Mary Wollstonecraft was just vilified. And, blue stockings was an insult instead of being something really cool like it was in the 1750s when it first started. And so, and then you also had the wars with Napoleon, you had everything else going on. And so there's things that she couldn't actually speak openly about. And so there's that veneer of manners and of the society and how, all the societal rules, because it's like rules of conversation were very set. You talk about the roads, you talk about the weather, you talk about each other's health, the family's health. A visit lasted, when you go visiting, you had days that you visited and days that you were visited. And it would be morning calls, even though they went from like 1 to 4 in the afternoon. They were still called morning calls for some stupid reason. But they would last for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and then people would leave. So how much time you have for actual conversation? And so you had those, the longest conversation a woman could have with a man, where it's just the two of them talking, is during a dance usually, which is why they like dancing, because a dance would last a half an hour. And depending on the type, where if you get those slow ones like you see in all the Pride and Prejudice movies, where you got the four in a line walking forward and you got the specific turns and all these kind of things, you would have more time to talk. But if it was something like a jig or a reel, you really didn't, because you're doing a lot of jumping around. But those kind of things. So courting rituals were also different, because then the man could visit more than just once a week. He could come 2 or 3 times a week, and then let's stay for a half an hour, all these kind of things. So you had this whole thing and these very specific rules of how everything went. And that's what she has covering it all. And so if you go into it thinking Jane Austen writes romances, that's what you'll see. But that's not what she wrote. She wrote a diatribe about her society, but she had to do it in a way that it would be accepted. And I think it was brilliant for her to say the author was a lady. Now, I appreciate the fact that her brother, after she died, had her name put on all of it, but I also wish he hadn't, because by saying a lady, that puts it to every woman in the gentry.
Right.
It could be anybody who was writing this. And so instead of looking at the author and analyzing her, they would just look at the book. So then she could write about things in a way that she could make the same points that feminist writers were making without actually making it. It was really fascinating to look at with her. That's why I think she's still a classic. So, anyway.
Matt left a few comments in the YouTube
Oops.
responding to this. I need a little help deciphering those.
Okay. Yes, the Bronte sisters experience, which Hayworth, yeah, and call them having an at home. Thank you. I was trying to remember what that was called. It's the visits, when they're at home for visits. So you would leave a card when you like say yes, England did invent line dancing for sure. But so like say somebody comes into town for the season, as they called it, which I forget what the months were, but that's when, all the balls happening and all the stuff, the plays and everything, and everybody's in London, which is going to town. So then what you would do is you would take your card, and on your card, it would have your name and where you live, and it would give the time, the day you would be at home. And you would just leave it with your friends and the people you wanted to have come visit you. And they would do the same with you once you came. And then you would decide whose visit you returned. Now, when you accept a visit from somebody, you are required to visit them back within usually the next week. If you wait too long, that's an insult. So, like in Pride and Prejudice, when Jane goes to London to stay after the Bingleys and everybody, ran away in the middle of the night, and she goes to stay with the Gardners, she goes to visit Caroline Bingley. Caroline Bingley is like, oh, we're leaving. I'm not, they got to go. So she doesn't even let the visit last as long as it's supposed to. And then she takes more than 3 weeks to return the visit. That was an insult from Caroline Bingley, huge insult. And then doesn't stay the full 15 minutes. All of that is the implication there is, I want nothing to do with you. Do
I
not
don't
contact
respect
me
you.
again.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's just ending the relationship. And so, yeah, those kind of things. I mean, the manners were just, the list of all the things to do. And it's fascinating too, because like they're very clear that women were not allowed to show their feelings to men until the man expressed his own. Then they could show their feelings. But yet, how do you let the man know you're interested? There were ways to work around it. But see, this is not something that like Jane Bennet knew what to do. Here's Charles Bingley, who is used to being in town, used to dealing with the women of society. They had so many ways to let you know if they were interested or not that fell within all of the rules of propriety, even to the extent of there was something called the language of the fan. And women would do different things with their fan to show what they felt. There were things meaning, I hate you, things meaning, I like you, I want to get to know you more, I don't want to. I mean, all sorts of things. How they tapped it, if they tapped their shoulder, they drew it across their face. I mean, it's just this fascinating, intricate language. If you look it up, you'll see what all of the things mean. They had all these ways of communicating without actually communicating. And this is not something they would learn in a little town like Meryton. This isn't something Jane knew. So everyone's saying, oh, well, she's not interested in you was understandable because she's completely, to the letter, obeying all the rules of propriety, not knowing there were ways she could show her interest. So, anyway.
Fascinating.
It's a very interesting world. It's a super interesting world.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and why go ahead, Julie.
That's how they got around having no telephones.
Mm-hmm.
Just having like a set time you're home.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. The
But
calling
also,
cards.
Yeah.
everything was much slower too. I mean, we now, it's like 10 seconds this, texting, everything else. But then they were used to just writing a letter and hearing back 2 weeks later. They were just used to that. Yeah. So, anyway, we are being
Matt.
watched. Yes, exactly, Matt. I mean, it truly is an incredibly fascinating culture, which you really have to look into to understand the books because it is so vastly different in many ways. Subtlety is the thing, especially with the British people. And so Americans are not subtle. They just are not. And so, anyway, it's interesting. So, Shannon got her Pride and Prejudice rampage in.
We were due for one. It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. Yep.
Another comment from Matt. The post box on street corners, freedom to send a letter without family or servants knowing.
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting.
And especially, there's things like mail then, you paid to receive it, not to send it. The times you paid to send it was either you franked it, as they called it, and so there would be something written across it saying paid for by so and so. Or if you sent it express, but still you're paying for the express writer and they have to pay to receive it when it gets to them. So you can refuse the mail by just not paying for it, and then it goes back.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
All these things, yeah, just it's a different society. Well, and that's
Completely
why
different.
why it spawns so much fan fiction.
Mhm.
Why it's
Yeah.
like it's so appealing and interesting because it's like like we it doesn't seem cost effective from Will.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean like I think people of our ilk, which is to say the lower and middle class, are always interested in what's going on in the middle class. It's always some kind of a morbid, or in the higher class, the
Right.
upper echelons, the upper crust. Like we always want to know what's going on there because it's like, they have some kind of a secret way that they communicate with each other. And if I just learn the secrets, maybe I can be accepted into it, and I can be rich too. And then there's some of that with it. There's also like seeing how alien of a world it is. There's so I don't know. There's always that brand of fiction of like this is a snapshot of what life is like in the upper crust, and it's appealing. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was not long ago that Crazy Rich Asians was catching all of the flame, right? I mean, it's just a different view of
It is a
a
completely
slightly
different
different
world.
society.
Well, and there's even things like, and men, it wasn't the same. I mean, you had a difference in clothing between, the gentry and the servant class. Of course, you'd have that with everything, but it's like women had very strict rules of clothing, so that you knew at first glance where the woman fell in society, whether she be servant class, whether she's a child, she's a young lady, an adolescent, if she's a debutante, if she's married, if she's a widow, if she's a courtesan, everything in how they dress, next lines of the clothing, what type of clothing, what they wore on their heads, what color they could wear. Young unmarried girls, especially the debutantes, were only allowed white and pastels, no matter how well they looked on them. Darker colors you couldn't wear until you were married. And then it was a different style of clothing. And so they knew at a glance, just looking at you, where you fell and if they could talk to you or not. And so, because things like girls who weren't out, as they call it, which is, able to date, is what we would call it now, that men, single men, were not supposed to speak to. They weren't supposed to even acknowledge them. And you could tell by the way they wore their hair and the type of clothing they had on. And, all of that, every bit of that was very much defined. And so when you talk about a woman needing to get her wedding clothes, because she's engaged to get married, it means her trousseau is completely different wardrobe because she's getting married. That shows she's married. And so that's something Americans really don't understand. And so, yeah, that's another big thing with it also. Anyway,
All of it. It's all fascinating.
it's very fascinating. I just love delving into it. And I love finding authors who have delved into it and have learned all of that culture, not
Well, and
just spell
that's
the
probably
words the
what
right way.
separates good and bad Jaff,
It
right?
really
People
does.
who understand what they're writing about.
Exactly. And aren't using phrases like a lot and are you all right in a Regency era? I'm like, nope. Or ego. That's another one that kills me. I was just like, stop it. You've got to use something else. Yes, it's a Greek word. Didn't come into common usage meaning self-worth until the 1940s. Doesn't fit in 1811.
There you go. Comment from Matt, you need to watch Bridgerton.
I do need to watch it. Yes.
I know my wife has been going through it and enjoying it quite a bit. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you'd like it.
I know that gets talked about a lot in Jaff too.
I bet.
So, yeah, anyway, all right. Shannon will stop.
I mean, we got what another
14
few
minutes.
minutes before we wrap it all up. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Any other topics that that we should cover, discuss? Obviously there's a lot going on in the world, but it felt good to just like chill out, decompress, talk about a world completely separate from our world. Yeah, but I mean, we still got a few minutes here if anyone wants to bring something up.
Yeah. We definitely have to talk George P. Lee one of these days, though.
Yeah. Oh, that's gonna be fun. That's your main segment.
That's mine.
I want to hear all about
That
that.
and the Indian placement program.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Uh, we miss you in Aaron's stream, by the way. Yeah. It was fun doing it while it lasted. I just am so glad to not be reading the Book of Mormon anymore.
God, yeah, I'm glad not to read that
Uh,
again.
that was a long ass project.
It was cathartic for me, though, in many ways. I mean,
Yeah.
it was rough, and it brought up a lot of trauma, but it was also rather cathartic, and so
Yeah.
I was
Well, and you
glad
were
of
also,
that.
it was also while you were fighting your
Oh
really,
my
really
God,
shitty health problems too. So that was
I
making things
know.
so much worse. And
We spent a year trying to figure out what the hell was wrong with me, in fact.
yeah.
Yeah, right in the
So
middle of all that. Oh God. Yeah,
yeah, I'm glad that project is done.
I am too.
There's a need to get yourself and Lilith liberated on camera together,
I
Shannon.
know.
Oh,
Peter brought that
yes.
up, putting
Yes.
me and Lilith on camera, and we just never
Absolutely.
did get it arranged, but I do want to do that. I think it would be really fun.
Are y'all beyond the Book of Ruth? That might be a good opportunity.
Well, he wants just the two of us on just something else on his channel
Oh,
doing something.
wonderful. That'd
Yeah,
be really fun.
put us
I would
together.
love to watch that.
I would love to do it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, well, for anyone who is watching this live or is watching it immediately after it airs, April first episode is coming up. It is in the hopper, just about ready to post. We had a lot of fun with it. We wanted a break, a casual, fun episode break before we do general conference. And the initial plan, frankly, was to do this book, the next Givens episode, The God Who Weeps. But I got a ways into it and I was like, can I make an April Fool's version of an episode and still cover it and just like talk about how awesome the book is or something? And it's like, nah, I can't.
Uh-uh.
I can't. So we decided to jettison that as an idea and we came up with a completely different idea for the episode. And well, we recorded it Sunday night and today I spent most of the day editing it and I was laughing my way through the whole edit process. So I'm excited to see what the feedback is like. I had
Yeah.
a ton of fun recording it with you, Shan,
Yes,
and
it was fun.
it'll yeah, it's fun. It's really fun. We'll see what the reception is like. Whenever I do anything that's more experimental like this, it's always bifurcated feedback. Some people love it, some people hate it. So we'll see what the reception is like, but it was super fun to do. So, it was super fun to write, really difficult to record. Uh,
This
but
was fun to listen to. You
yeah.
were laughing.
Oh yeah.
It'll be
There's
fun to
almost
see what
no
everybody says.
almost no laughter in the episode itself. But there's some outtakes, so that makes it all okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
But yeah, I think that's gonna wrap it up for our hangout this
Yes.
for March of 2025. And we're gonna be doing general conference next. I'm gonna be live blue skying. I still don't know how to abbreviate that.
What did we
Bluing?
say? What did I say on it when we were talking about it? Live flying through the blue sky or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So yeah, because fuck X and Twitter. Live
Live
skeeting.
skiing.
That's something very different, Will.
Yep.
uh, if you want to do that, go to Twitter. Yeah, I'm going to be posting up live through General Conference as it is taking place, and they that's what's it's called. They say skeet, like shooting
They
a
say
skeet for a
skeet.
shotgun.
Yeah.
Huh. That's what they call. Oh man,
That's what it's
that's
called.
very weird. I like flying the blue
Just
sky.
say post.
I just think of Little John. All right, well, neither here nor there. So I'm gonna live skeet through all of General Conference, I guess. So that should be really fun. Those are going to be essentially my first posts on BlueSky because I haven't, I have no presence over there right now. So it's a
Yeah.
contentious term, but it's catching on. Well, okay,
Mhm.
good to know. Or maybe you're LARPing a Poe on us right now. You're just getting early on the April Fool's joke on me right now. In any case, that'll be fun. And then we got a general conference episode after that. We decided that we're going to break up our record and have an hour break in between it instead of marathoning all the way
Oh my
through.
God, yeah.
So hopefully that'll allow us to keep the energy through all of the sessions because every general conference episode, like by the end, by Sunday afternoon, and then the Patreon, Sunday or Saturday evening bonus episode or portion of it, we are both just haggard
Oh my God.
wrecks, exhausted, emotionally
Hmm.
exhausted. So, how about Utah seagulling? I like that. There we go.
That's
um, so yeah, but it's still going to be interesting to watch what General Conference, what is happening, what they're
yes.
going to say, who gets to say what at General Conference, and how
Hmm.
much they're going to be stroking Bednar's ego. That I think
Yep.
that'll be the most interesting to watch for.
Right.
Yeah. Any final words? Any last
Nope.
words?
I think I said everything I was going to say. I said more than I was planning to say.
Well, we got to fill 2 hours one way or another. Uh, But yeah, well, for viewers watching live, thanks for tuning in.
Yes.
And for commenters, Will and Matt, thank you both for chatting along with us, tuning in and doing some back and forth. And anybody listening in the backlog, awesome. Thanks for joining us. And if you're a patron subscriber, of course, at patreon.com/glassboxpod, watching this live or listening to it in the backlog, we really do appreciate the support. Keeps the lights on at Ground Gnome Studios and the Dragon Lair. Is
Yes.
that the official title of the Dragon Lair Studios?
That's what it should be. That's what I should call it.
I
I
mean,
just
that's
need to finish it.
colloquially, so why not?
Why not? You
Why not
already
officially?
call my room that.
It's perfect.
Yes, I just need to finish redoing it. I just got sick. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we'll look forward to it, and we'll be doing probably another live stream to end out April, depending on a few things, depending on if Shannon gets accepted into a heart study. So
Yes.
that's going to change our recording schedule as
We'll
well.
see. Yeah.
So we'll see. Yeah, things are up in the air right now, but thanks for tuning in, and take care, everybody.
Okay.
See you
Good
later.
night, everybody. Okay, Joel, I want to know what's the plant